Hello and welcome to Sideways. This week we're talking about why we keep putting things off, even when not doing them has a detrimental impact on our lives. We discuss how our motivation strategy has an impact on how much we can get done, and Martin tells us what fruit he bought at the farmer's market. How to beat procrastination.
Good morning.
What time do you call this?
Well, I tried to enter the Zoom meeting. It said you had ended it, so I thought that...
That's the equivalent of someone saying the dog ate my homework.
Not really. I was bang on time, but it was your end. Before you start throwing aspersions around.
Throwing nasturtiums around.
Anyway, you good?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks. How was the farmer's market?
Farmer's market was very good, actually.
Did you
Incredibly busy.
Get some seaweed pate?
I didn't actually. No. That particular stall hasn't appeared since. I can't imagine it. I'd imagine it wasn't overly popular, and I wouldn't be a repeat customer. That's for sure.
Quite popular with you, wouldn't it? You got tucked up for some nice seaweed pate.
It depends how you describe popularity. Really, one purchase I don't think really will put me into that category.
Anyway, never mind about that. It's nice, isn't it, today?
It's lovely, which is, I think that's why the market was so busy.
Let me guess, you got some apples and some pears.
I did, but I didn't have my normal russets or my normal commies pears because they're out of season. So I had to have some John of Gold apples and some normal conference pears. But I got me coffee beans, which aren't grown locally, so that's a bit of a swizz. They come from Colombia. They don't come from Aylesford.
Yeah, Colombia. That's not even in Kent, is it? Colombia?
I think we're twinned. We're twinned with it, so it's all right.
Anyway, I don't suppose that's what you wanted to talk about today, is it?
Not really, no. I'll tell you what my working title is, shall I? And we can take it from there.
Okay.
It's called I'll Do That Tomorrow.
Oh, this is about procrastination.
Yeah. It is about procrastination. The inspiration came from it, really. I've been watching the American version of The Office on Netflix. I don't know whether you've seen that or been into it at all.
Well, firstly, it's a bit too popular.
There's a character on there who she's called Meredith, and she's this functioning alcoholic. And I was talking to my daughter, my youngest daughter Lizzie, about it because she's been watching it as well. And she said to me, "Oh, that'd make quite a good basis for an episode." I thought, "Oh yeah, that's a good idea." So I got the inspiration both from the TV series plus my daughter, or my youngest daughter. So here we are.
We probably better make this quite good then.
We better really. The pressure's on, isn't it?
You're going to have to massively up your game.
I'll procrastinate no further and crack on.
Yeah, please do.
But most people have a tendency to do it anyway, don't they? I mean, this is sort of a subject which isn't limited to those people in recovery or have addiction issues.
Yeah, it certainly isn't. Certainly isn't confined to people with addiction issues. I don't know whether most people procrastinate, but certainly it is very widespread. Yes.
Yeah, it is. It is, but going back to this character, Meredith, I mean, she works in the office and she does a lot of the stereotypical alcoholic things. So there was a very quick snippet of her taking a swig of the alcoholic hand wash at one point. And it was sort of a quick lick, really, and it was gone. You'd have lost it in the mayhem of what was going on in the episode if you didn't have a nose for that sort of thing. But it seems strange because a lot of people that come to groups not only talk about the procrastination, but also talk about this, the hand wash thing. I mean, a lot of people have come in that have drunk aftershave.
Right. Any particular aftershave?
Well, we always laugh about it, really, because they say it burns the throat like hell, but you have lovely smelling breath. You know what I mean? Which it downplays it a little bit, because when you're at that stage, it's going to be pretty nasty. I didn't actually ever do it myself, but I can understand why people in need of alcohol would go to or stoop to such depths, as it were.
I can't get out of my head now an image of Henry Cooper doing the Brute advert.
Well, quite, yeah. I would say if you get something, if you're splashing on a little bit of aftershave and you get it in your mouth, it tastes horrible, doesn't it? Oh, that's just disgusting.
Yeah, certainly not. So I'd certainly want it with soda or something.
Well, you would, and it burns your throat. I'd imagine that if you're splashing on a bit of brew, if you splash it in the wrong places, that burns anyway, doesn't it? You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
You mean on your genitals?
Yeah.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Spraying aftershave on your genitals, Martin?
Well, no. Well, it just reminded me of a story. I remember I was only a kid. I was going out on a date, and I borrowed a bit of brute off my brother Russ. He said, "Hey, have some of this. They'll sort you out." And I thought I'll just have a little bit of splash down there because that'd be, just in case. And my God, I hit the roof. I had to get back in the shower. It's a bit like I don't know if one of my daughters, I think it was Emily, my eldest daughter, she bought me some mint and tree gel, like a shampoo and gel for the shower, and it does a very similar thing in most sensitive areas. I was a light. I had to tell her about that. I don't want that as a present anymore. It was outrageous.
Tea tree does have that impact. Even if you use kind of something tea tree on your head, you can feel the warmth of it in your scalp.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that old joke. Do you remember at school someone would say, "Hey, do you know Vic Burns?" And you'd say no. And you'd say, "It does if you put it on your bollocks."
Well, hey, you have to cut that word out. You can't have that on one of our episodes.
Yeah, I can. I think that's all right. I can just tick that little box that says explicit content. And quite frankly, talking about your genitals on a Sunday morning is definitely rating as explicit content.
Well, yeah, I think their listening ratings go up though, don't they? When it's explicit stuff.
I doubt that it will when it's about your genitals.
That's enough about those now. And I'm going to move back on to my notes, if you don't mind. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the procrastination bit comes up with this lady Meredith. In one of the scenes, she's sitting in a conference room. We've all been there, haven't we? With like the area managers in, and you're all sitting around the conference room table. And this area manager, she's saying to the people in the room, where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 5 years' time? That old chestnut. Mm-hmm. And Meredith said, well, in 5 years' time, I'd like to be 5 years sober. And she said, oh, yeah, that's admirable. We said, oh, actually, no. In 5 years' time, I want to be 4.5 years sober, which really struck a chord with me. I thought that's a brilliant line. Because anyone that goes into recovery knows you will leave it as long as possible. I got my own story when I went to the doctor and he said, if you carry on drinking like this, you're going to, 6 months down the line, you're probably going to croak it. And in my mind, I thought, that's great. I can carry on drinking for 4 or 5 and then deal with it then. Yeah. And I thought I was alone in my thoughts in that sort of behaviour. But I mean, one of the girls came in very early on when I was in recovery. She came into groups and she'd been to the doctors who had given her a pretty similar story, but it said to her, you probably only got 2 relapses left in you. Mm. And in her mind, she thought, great, I can have one more then, and then I'll deal with it later on. And it plays out in this scene in the American Office as well. It illustrates that perfectly.
Yeah, it's staggering, isn't it? When you think about it, it's staggering that you would allow yourself to get so near the edge.
Yeah, we all tend to do it. It's a very, very common theme in the recovery circles. We all talk about this rock bottom, and people have their own rock bottom, but we will push it and push it and push it until everything is collapsing around us, until we've really got no choice but to deal with it.
Is Rock Bottom by Lindsay DePaul on your guilty pleasures list?
It's not, but I used to like a bit of Lindsay DePaul back in the day. Yeah. She's sadly passed away, but
is she?
Yeah, it's a few years ago now. Yeah, no, she was one of my early crushes.
Was she?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, she was. Yeah, very much. Yeah,
great.
Anyway,
is that in your notes?
It's not. No, you dragged me off. But I wanted to ask you, why, in your opinion, why we procrastinate? I've looked up online as to various reasons, but I'm sure you'd have your own thoughts and opinions on as to why we do it. Do people come in to see you and would confess to being a procrastinator? Yeah,
often. So people either present with that issue, and to the extent that it's causing them particular problems in their lives, or it is a symptom of something kind of broader. I'll tell you how I think about procrastination. It's like this. There are only two motivation strategies that we use in our lives broadly.
Okay.
And that is the motivation to get away from pain or the motivation to get towards pleasure.
Okay.
And I would argue that every single decision that you make, including which apples and pears to buy at the farmer's market, is motivated by one or other of those two motivation strategies. You're either motivated by getting towards pleasure or away from pain. So, for example, this morning when they didn't have your normal choice of apple and pear, you were probably, I don't know, you can tell me, either you were motivated, you bought the ones that you did buy, either because you were motivated by getting away from the pain of not having any fruit at all, or getting towards the pleasure of enjoying a different fruit.
It was a bit of both, actually. I've got to say, yeah. I was disappointed that my original choice wasn't there. But again, going back to the seaweed pate scenario, it broadened my horizons by trying out something a bit different.
Right. So if you think about it in terms of procrastination, let's take, rather than sort of thinking about something really significant like recovery, going into recovery, stopping drinking, think about something really mundane, like when you've got to do a piece of homework or an assignment or something. A lot of people, not all, but a lot of people will think, okay, so it's due in a fortnight, so I won't have to do it today.
Yeah.
And they'll keep making that same decision every day. They'll think, oh, I've got to do that assignment. No, I won't do it today. There's something else I'd rather do. And what is happening there is they're being motivated by getting away from the pain of sitting down and doing it every single day until it gets to the night before the assignment's due. And then you're motivated by the pain of getting away from the consequence of not having done it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I was trying to go on.
Well, I'm just to finish the point. So when you find yourself struggling to do something over and over again, and sometimes it can be something very mundane, other times it can be something really significant that has a big impact on your life, I've found that quite often it's because the most powerful motivation strategy in you is the motivation to get away from the pain of the thing. So with recovery, with drinking, all the time you're putting it off, you're getting away from the pain of stopping.
Yeah.
And the moment you are able to find your motivation to get towards the pleasure of not being a drinker, that's when things change.
I think it works very well into addiction, into addiction theory, doesn't it? I mean, I remember sitting down with my key worker, and because in common with most of the people that early in recovery, you know, you've got piles of letters that have accumulated that you haven't bothered to deal with. Lots of stuff you put off, and you just crack on and have another drink to exactly that, get away from the pain. But also there was this, she identified in me as a sort of a fear of failure as well, that if I went into recovery, I feared that I would fail. And she it sort of works into the, she was quite good in the way she talked through me various bits and pieces, and identified that I had this perfectionist streak, which again lends itself very nicely into this fear of failure, because I was sort of protecting myself against that fear or against the failure.
It's one of the reasons why people who are perfectionists have a tendency to procrastinate, because they're getting away from the pain of failure.
Yeah. It is, and it's and also I was fearing the judgment by others, and there's this self-condemnation that again lent itself into the perfectionist narrative. But she was able to identify a lot of this after talking to her for quite a long time, but in over several different appointments. But she seemed to have got me sussed out in the end, and it did start to make quite a lot of sense.
My daughter, who, as you know, is a psychology student, she told me something that I didn't know about perfectionism, which also is kind of relevant to this conversation. She was telling me that there are actually two different types of perfectionism. There's a kind of a damaging perfectionism, which is when you hold yourself to an unreasonably high standard and always expect yourself to hit that standard. So if you are someone like that, as I think you're talking about you being, then the likelihood is you will not do things, you will avoid things because you're worried about not reaching your standard. Exactly. So that's a kind of destructive form of perfectionism. But there is also a positive form of perfectionism, which is when you aim very high, but you don't always expect yourself to reach those heights. So the reason that perfectionism is positive is because you're saying to yourself, right, I really want to get up there, or I really want to achieve something very high, but I recognize that if I put the effort in and I make an attempt to get there, even if I don't, it still would have been worthwhile. So in a sense, the destructive perfectionism is motivated by an engine of trying to get away from pain, whereas the positive perfectionism is motivated by the engine of trying to get towards the pleasure of achieving better than you might have done had you not aimed so high.
I think I've always fell very much into the destructive camp on that one. I'll avoid doing it if I don't think I'm going to come. It's like artwork, I've thrown artwork away because I just don't think it's good enough. And other people would say, well, it doesn't really matter because it's a bit of experience you're gaining, and keep hold of them. They're great reference points. And as you know, my youngest daughter is an art teacher, and she says exactly that. And everyone's got a bit of artist in them. And you might do 12 paintings you don't like, and you'll get one you really do. But to me, I've never liked that scenario. I've always had to sit down and do one, and it's got to be right straight away. So I've always, and I still struggle with that. I do still struggle with that, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, there's something in there about the I suppose the motivation of, or the motivation related to why you're doing it. Who it's for. I can remember. Do you remember I drew that awful picture of some flowers in a vase, and you were very, very disparaging of it, and I think I put a video of it on Facebook. And then your daughter said to me, she sent me that little drawing by, what's his name, McKeezy, I think his name is. Anyway, and it said in there, the message in it essentially was, did you enjoy doing it? And if your answer is yes, I did enjoy doing it, that it was worth doing. But what I think you're talking about is finding it difficult to enjoy something you're not good at.
Yes.
Right. And so I see that a lot in people. And I would say that if you are someone who finds it hard to do something and not be any good at it, that is a reflection of the way you feel about yourself. It's I've got to be good at this, because if I suck at it, then I can't feel okay about myself. And so I'll avoid things that I'm not very good at.
But I also found that I always used to would put another task in its place. If there's something unpleasant, say the tax return, for example, it's something we all put off, isn't it, really? I mean, I have got it down to, I always do it now in that gap between Christmas and New Year. And I would, if I sit down and think, I really must do my tax return, I'll just do something else. You know what I mean? I'll put the washing on, or do something else in the house. And it's a sort of a replacement for what I should be doing, just to put it off. But I feel like I'm still being productive in that period then.
But when you're trying to do something like that, to kind of, because again, your motivation strategy there is very much a get away from pain one. I'm getting away from the pain of doing my tax return. So what you're really trying to do then to shift that is to work out for yourself. And this is why, and it's funny enough, this is why it's quite difficult for people when they're stopping drinking and they want to go into recovery, I think, because as we've discussed before, often someone who's thinking of stopping drinking won't remember what it's like to be sober, won't remember a time when they were sober and happy. So just park that thought for a second. If you're thinking about something like your tax return, with your tax return, the feeling of relief you get when you've completed it, right?
Yeah.
So the only way to switch your motivation is to find a way of kind of embodying, visualizing, imagining what that's going to feel like when you've completed it. So if you've got an assignment or a tax return or a job you really don't want to do, if you can get yourself into a space where you're thinking, I'm going to feel like this when this is done, I'm going to feel such a relief and I won't have to worry about it anymore. That's the point at which you're most likely to pull yourself forward to do it. And that's the reason I think people have difficulty in stopping drinking, because they can't imagine what it's going to feel like. They can't imagine that kind of glorious feeling of being free from alcohol. And if you can find a way of feeling, that's why peer support is so useful, because you've got people around you all the time saying, it's great over here, you really want to join us. So the hope is that people build their sense of belief in that way.
I think it's such a complex issue going into recovery. I can sort of relate to the complexity when you're doing a tax return. That could be quite complex, so you put it off. A bit like there's there's a return I have to do each year for the Aspire to Be charity to the Charities Commission, part of HMRC. And it's a very, very long-winded process. It's awful. It really is. And I tend to wait until I get the reminder saying you've got, this is due within the next 6 weeks. And I keep thinking to myself, I should do it way before then. But it tends to be I'll leave it to that point and then I'll do it. But you're right. The relief I get when I've finished it and I get it signed by the other trustees and it gets scanned in and sent off, it is fabulous. But it's very difficult to get me to that point. I should do it earlier. But I just don't.
But part of the reason you don't do it is because your thinking around it is much more coloured by your known experience of how unpleasant it is to do it, and so the balance isn't right. When you're thinking more about, let me think about how I'm going to feel when it's done. Say to yourself, this is when it is done. I'm going to give myself this little treat. I'm going to do this. That's the way to pull yourself forward. I mean, it doesn't always work, but it's very, very hard to get a lot of forward momentum when you're motivating yourself constantly by getting away from discomfort and pain. Yeah,
I mean, what you said there is, again, sort of part of my notes when I was doing a bit of research on it, they were saying about, imagining your future self. Yeah. And try and relate to that future self rather than your present self. So how are you going to feel when that happens? So yeah, that all it seems true. So again, it seems like bizarrely you know what you're talking about.
I'll tell you the other thing about procrastination. This is something that we've spoken about before. With regard to addiction, and you'll have heard this a lot of time, many more times than I've heard it. But when people say things like, "Right, I'm gonna stop drinking when I feel a bit better."
Yeah.
Right. So it's the same thing with procrastination. You have to understand with procrastination, because quite often you say to yourself, "Oh, I'm gonna do this tax return when I feel a bit more like it." It's never going to happen. You have to recognise that the only way to make yourself feel like it is to do it. So with drinking or any sort of addiction or any sort of dependence, you aren't ever going to feel better. The only time you're going to feel better is when you take some action and start changing your behaviour. And whilst that might be difficult, it is the truth.
I agree. I was just thinking of a story. It's the guy I work with. His sister constantly says she's going to clear her garage out when the weather gets better. Right? This has been going on for several years now. They can't get to the. When the guy comes around to read the electricity meter. Well, theirs is at the back of the garage, and he can't get there because there's so much stuff in the garage, and so therefore, they just have to go on assumed readings. So they're probably way out. And she always says, "Oh yeah, when the weather gets better, I'll go and sort that out, and get rid of the rubbish." And it never happens. But it would be so much easier if she did it for everyone concerned. But she's constantly procrastinating on it.
There's another. I think that kind of brings into play another element of procrastination, which is when you find yourself procrastinating and it's costing you money. So, for instance, people will avoid doing really simple things like going online and paying a parking fine or renewing your car tax. And people still won't do it, even though it takes 5 minutes. Yeah. They'll not do it and it'll cost them a fine. Then they'll get a £60 parking ticket or something, right? And so with that one, you really then need to start delving into the extent to which somebody really feels a level of care about themselves. When your life is costing you money unnecessarily, to me, that is always an indication that you don't matter enough to yourself. When people turn up to, I haven't really got any at the moment, but I have over the years had people who habitually turn up late for their session. Now, I don't extend my time. If you turn up 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late, you get a shorter session. That's the way it is. Because the boundary of the session is about you respecting yourself enough to come and take advantage of the time that you've got to talk about yourself. If you're perpetually late, I always then at some point have a conversation with someone about why are you not important enough? Why are other things more important in your life to the extent that it stops you coming to this session, which is all about you for your full time? So I think when the same thing's happening with your life where you're costing yourself money or making your life difficult because you're not doing things, there's some investigation required there. And of course, that would be quite common with people with addiction problems.
Oh, good. I'm going to send them all your way.
Yeah, don't do that. I haven't got time.
Yeah. Well,
But
no,
you know that as a community of recovering addicts, you know that self-esteem is an issue. And
it
so,
is, yeah.
And so it's not surprising, is it, that you're doing something that is self-destructive, because it's easy for us to be self-destructive when we don't really think we're worth very much.
And we could spend an awful lot of time discussing that point. In fact, there's loads of points on procrastination that we haven't covered. But
let's do it tomorrow.
We'll do it tomorrow. We'll do it another time. I won't put the positive stuff. I'm not going to put that on my gratitude list. I'm grateful that Graham comes with some good stuff, because it would only inflate your self-esteem, and I don't want that.
No, nobody wants that. So what is on your gratitude list for this week then?
Well, it was about the farmers market, really. I was just grateful that it was open today. The weather was good.
Nice.
Even though we're in lockdown, it was highly COVID compliant, and there was this general feel of well-being. Everyone was very friendly, and everyone was grateful to see each other, as it were. Even the lady on the coffee bean stall said, "Oh, I recognise you. This is what you had last time." I thought either she sells very little of this amount, or she's a very good. So therefore, she said, "Oh God, thank God he's here. I'm going to be able to sell some beans," or she's a very good observant saleswoman, and I think she falls into the latter category.
You're her only customer, I think. She thought she cooked up this harebrained scheme that she'd go to a farmer's market and sell coffee, and she happened upon you.
I know, yeah.
And that was that.
A bit like the seaweed guy. But
exactly. So actually, my gratitude this week is, I suppose it's kind of related in a way. I'm grateful for these dry days and the promise of spring, and today being able to put my shorts on. It's lovely. It's been a long, old, hard winter, isn't it? And it might still have a sting in the tail, of course. But when you get a day like this, when you can open the doors and feel the warmth of the air without wrapping up in about 7 layers, it's fantastic. And as we've discussed before, gratitude is most precious when it can be found in things that are easily replicated. So hopefully we'll be able to easily replicate some of these days as the months go forward.
Yeah, let's hope so. Mate. But actually, what I'm also grateful for is some of the listener feedback that I get personally, which is really good. In fact, I mentioned on last week's episode about one of the girls that comes to a group called Ronnie, and she started to listen to our episodes. Last night she was on the Zoom meeting. She confirmed she'd now listened to all of them. So she got all my back.
That's true recovering addict behaviour. That is.
I did say that. But I was very grateful for her support. But she binge listened effectively.
Yeah, I think we've discussed this before. About the fact that when people with addiction problems turn their addictive behaviour to good, they're unstoppable. Because that sort of tenacity and that relentless pursuit for something, when it isn't drugs or alcohol, it's something more positive in your life, then that is it's a fantastic thing. Well done, Ronnie.
Yeah, Ronnie's good. She said my bits were really good and yours were a bit tedious. So
now she's going down in my estimation.
Yeah, well, I'm
worried about her judgment.
I'm lying at that point. I'm going to have to defend her. Yeah. So anyway, what about the guilty pleasure? The music guilty pleasure. You had given that any thoughts this week?
Well, actually, I have given it some thought, and I'll tell you what I came up with. I've come up with a reason why I find it difficult to think of guilty pleasures. I think fundamentally, I don't really feel guilty about anything that's pleasurable.
Ah, okay.
So, how do you like them apples?
I don't like them at all. I didn't like the ones I didn't like the ones that I couldn't buy this morning.
I think I struck. Sometimes I think of a song and I think, oh yeah, that's a guilty pleasure. But then I think I don't feel guilty about it though. I think there was a time when I would have probably felt guilty about a lot of things that I found pleasurable. But I think these days I try not to feel guilty about anything that gives me happiness. So
true, yeah. Perhaps we want to drop that. Perhaps, I don't like that. That comes under the explicit banner. We're going to get banned. We're going to get kicked off Spotify with your potty mouth. Anyway, my guilty pleasure is a track called "In the Year 2525" by Zager and Evans.
I think I know that. I think I know that. Yes,
it's like a 60s song. And it's one that Yem and I used to put on the jukebox in the Checkers at Farley, because it was quite a bit of a biker's pub. So we go out there up on our motorbikes, we draw up outside and go in there, and there was all this rock on the jukebox. And we'd put on a bit of Zager and Evans, and everyone thought, what the hell is this? But it's quite a catchy little tune. It's quite awful, really.
That's why, you see, that you're really what you're doing is you're illustrating my point. So my point is, you can't really be guilty about that because, and I wrote about this in my blog today, that is an example of music, however good or bad it is, keeping the past alive. You can't feel guilty about that, can you?
Not really. Perhaps we'll drop this segment for future episodes. But I quite like it, but it may have run its course.
Well, maybe not. I mean, you seem to have an endless flipping supply of songs you feel guilty about liking. I think perhaps you ought to have a look at your levels of guilt.
I feel guilty about every CD I've ever bought, every track I've ever streamed. Anyway,
right.
It's been good. Thank you for your input.
Yeah, you're welcome. So have a good day. Enjoy the sunshine. Well, it's not that sunny, but enjoy the spring-like weather because we never know how long it's going to last, do we?
True.
You had your jab yet?
No, we don't. No, I haven't even had notification of when it is, but I know a lot of people around me are starting to get them, which is good.
I would have thought you'd have been done in the first tranche because you're so elderly.
I'm a very vulnerable member of society.
All right, I'll catch you later.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Bye.
Sideways was created by Graham Landy and Martin Pankhurst. If you want to read more about our work or sort through the extensive archive of past episodes, just visit grahamlandywellbeing.co.uk/sideways-podcast. You can follow us on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram at Sideways Podcast, and you can email us if you have a question or if there's something you'd like us to cover. But most of all, we want to tell you how grateful we are that you come and listen, and we ask that if you've enjoyed what you've heard, that you spread the word. And we'll see you next week.